When I was 13, I entered my school's public speaking contest. I didn't tell anyone. I did my speech in private. Until the day before, I finally told my mom. She was curious. What was it about? But I really wanted to do it on my own. And so I wouldn't tell her. She was actually getting quite angry at me. My mom's a perfectionist, and she was just worried. What was my grammar like? Couldn't she help? The day of the speech, I got up on stage. I said my speech. I could see her sitting there very nervously in the front row, but I won my school's public speaking contest. According to the Academy of Sciences, trusting your instinct really does work. In fact, when you're given two options, using your instinct, you will be right 90% of the time. Academics and researchers believe that instinct is an accurate and predictable tool. At 13, I'd never done a speech before. I'd certainly never been on stage. But I was trusting myself. I was passionate, and I followed my instinct. And yet, many of us don't. Why is that? I certainly didn't. As I grew and evolved in the world, I stopped trusting myself, stopped listening to that inner voice. According to Dr. Kira Bobinet, the reason for this has to do with our prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for our decision-making, long-term memory, and executive function. When we have these thoughts that just come to us, we tend to think of them as irrational snap judgments, when in fact, the neurological process is much greater than that. It's actually a compilation of memories and experiences coming together to give you the best choice possible based on your experiences. When have you been passionate about something? When did you follow your heart? When you knew you just had to do something? Or maybe something didn't feel quite right, and so you trusted your gut. Take Simone Biles. At 24, she was at the top of her game in gymnastics. She was going on to the Olympics to win all-round golds. On September 14th, 2021, she withdrew from the Olympics. When asked why, she said she was experiencing what gymnasts call twisties, when you lose orientation midair and it's unsafe for you to land. Despite all the criticism and all the pressure, she focused on her safety and she trusted her instinct. We see examples of this all the time with athletes, artists, and musicians as they are practicing their craft so that when they perform, it can become instinctual. Think about the violinist. As they are performing on stage, they are not thinking about every last movement, stroke, or note. They're just performing. They are in what psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says, in the state of flow, or more commonly known as being in the zone. When have you ignored your instincts? Can you think of a time that you did something and now that you look back, you'll wonder why you did it? Do you ever wonder how your life might be different today if you had trusted your instincts earlier on? One UCLA study showed that 19% of brides who had cold feet but got married anyways were divorced 4 years later, versus 8% who weren't and had cold feet. We see this more commonly than we think. In fact, in the media, we see it all the time. Think about that hit show on Netflix, Grace and Frankie, where their husbands, who have been business partners and friends for years, finally tell their wives about their secret love affair in their 70s. Imagine if these men had followed their instincts earlier, how much more fulfilled and joyous their life could have been. What I love about that show, not just because Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin are hilarious, but also because we can watch and see and how sad it is and relate to when people don't follow their instincts. We see examples of instincts in animals all the time. Think about when your dog gets wet and they automatically shake. Or when you see those baby turtles running towards the ocean as soon as they're hatched. Or when those birds just fly south for the winter. This knowing ability that animals have is there from birth. Ethologist Conrad Lawrence famously demonstrated instinct in animals with his work with geese. He noted that geese will imprint on whoever it is they come in contact first as soon as they're hatched, which of course is generally their mother. By ensuring that he was the first one, they imprinted on him, thus demonstrating this instinctual ability. And guess what? We're animals too. And yet, as we grow and evolve in the world, our instinct can get damaged. We stop listening to ourselves. It could be happening to you without you even realizing it. Think about when you were young and you said to your parents, something just doesn't feel right, and they ignored you. Or think about if you had to do a presentation in class and then your teacher said you did something wrong in front of everyone. Or maybe you're presenting a solution at work and someone jumps on top of you to present their own. So we stop trusting ourselves. We stop listening to our gut. But the good news is we have a way to relearn or learn our instincts. A framework of 5 steps that you can use to help you to relearn to trust those instincts. The first is to recognize that there's a thought that's entered your mind, and it could potentially be an instinct. Second, you're going to quiet that mind and listen to what it is that your brain is trying to tell you. Third, you're going to analyze that thought without judgment and let the implicit memory system do its work. Fourth, you're going to allow some time to digest the information. And then fifth, you're going to move forward and you're going to trust your instinct. The more that we do it, the more we use that muscle, the more powerful it becomes, and the less we'll stop second-guessing ourselves every time we have to make a decision. Dr. Daniel Kanahan helps us understand the connection between decision-making and instinct. If, for example, you are someone who uses your logical or rational thinking, that's in the prefrontal cortex. That's called our slow thinking. Then we have our unconscious thinking, which is when the thoughts just appear to us. That's our fast thinking. We tend to place a greater weight on those slow, rational cognitive thinking, when in fact, the neurological process is similar for both. Our brain actually does the work for us. Platt and Hudel also talk about how risk aversion and risk tolerance can affect how we use our instinct. So for example, if you're someone who's risk averse, you'll tend to use that rational cognitive thinking or that slow thinking and use your instinct less. If you're someone who's risk tolerant, you're just going to let that parasympathetic system do its work and you're going to trust your instincts. One thing we should never do is doubt when we feel unsafe, that feeling that we get of feeling unsafe. Maybe you're walking alone at night or you're in a parking garage and something is telling you to stay away from that shadowy corner. Or maybe your gut's screaming at you to run the other way. These physical experiences are trying to tell us something. They're trying to help us as we navigate our world. And not only do they help us read the audience sometimes, but also could help us save our lives. Trusting your gut means listening to these physical experiences. You could have butterflies in your stomach, or maybe you have sweaty palms or muscle tension, or maybe you just have sudden clarity all of a sudden. By listening to these physical experiences, you can certainly help yourself make better decisions. It is literally the neurons in your stomach speaking to the neurons in your mind and trying to help you as you navigate. When have you had one of these physical experiences? Did you listen to your gut? Or did you try to rationalize it away with logic? So back to me on the stage when I'm 13, I finally got enough nerve to look at my mom sitting there in the audience, and she was beaming up at me. I won my school's public speaking contest, and then I went on to win the regionals, and then I won the nationals. I was passionate about doing something. I trusted my instincts, and it paid off for me. But that wasn't always the case. As I grew and evolved and changed, I stopped listening to myself. I had to really work on using that muscle to start listening again to what it is my body was trying to tell me. And it finally led me to transform my career into doing something that not only I'm pretty good at, but it also brings me a lot of fulfillment and joy. I want that for you, to build a life around who you are by listening to and trusting your instincts. Thank you.